Home again.
Hello, hello, good evening, dear listeners of Radio 1 103.1. Yes, we would like to remind you that now our frequency has changed from 103.0, good old 103.0 to 103.1. And it's a good news because for those of you guys who drive American cars, you can listen to us now.
Right,
And
because they couldn't
and-
before. They could never reach that 103.0
Yeah.
dial, so now we're on the
Right,
one.
so don't complain anymore. So this is our English speaking show, Homesick at Home. Every Friday we're here with you to share a personality, someone new, someone really interesting. And actually tonight we're really a little nervous, right, Rafi?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm a little bit nervous myself.
Because this is the first time we have an official guest from the U.S. Embassy.
Right, and I'm afraid that I'm going to make a mistake or say something wrong and be like deported or never allowed back into America, lose my citizenship.
So now we've reached a new level. We have a special official guest right now, a Deputy Chief of Political Economic Section of the U.S. Embassy in Yerevan, Ruben Harutyunyan. Good evening, Ruben.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on your show. It's an honor.
Thanks
I'm the
for
one who should be
coming.
nervous. Instead, you guys are the ones that are nervous.
Oh, well, it's mutual.
Hopefully, it'll be all right during the show.
Yeah, sure. I think we're going there. And how do you feel here now in the studio?
I feel great. Yeah, you guys have been fantastic hosts, and this is cool. What you do is really cool.
Well, we have a good
nice.
start,
It's a good
Rafi.
start, yeah.
Rafi, what have you been doing this week?
This week?
Before we get to our
Sure,
questions.
honestly, this week I've been doing some daydreaming. I've been doing some window shopping, which I don't know if you can call it window shopping anymore because I've been going online and just picking out different things that I want. I plan on doing a big camping trip this summer, and so I went online to find out buy my new tent and sleeping bag and all that kind of stuff. I haven't bought it yet, but I have a nice, very big list, comprehensive
Cool.
list put together.
Awesome. That's great.
What about you, Ina? What have you been
I
up
had
to?
some family time this week, just chilling with my son, and it was good to be home
Nice.
a little bit. Yeah. And now we're back here.
What is home, though? Ina?
What is home? Home is where your heart is. Okay, Rubenjan. How should we address you? Deputy Chief Ruben or Mr. Harutyunyan?
No, that would be ridiculous. Please call me Ruben.
Okay, good.
Mr. Rubin?
My mom calls me Rubik. She's the only one who can call me Rubik.
Okay, note to self, do not-
Note to
won't
self,
get-
do not call me Rubik.
As soon as you said that, though, I wrote down that name. I'm gonna have to...
No. Ruben is what most people call me. And I think it suits me. The name suits me.
So tell us a bit. Have you always lived in Armenia?
So,
Were you born here?
Right. So
Let's start from the start.
I was born in Armenia. And my family moved to the U.S. in 1991 when I was 9 years old. So I've lived the majority of my life in the United States, in the Washington, D.C. area, the capital. And I went to school there, and I went to university in New York at Columbia University. And then I came back to Washington to go to graduate school at Johns Hopkins University. And then I joined the U.S. Foreign Service, which is the U.S. Diplomatic Corps. And I became a U.S. diplomat in 2007. And first, they sent me to Tel Aviv, Israel.
There.
Yep, it was wonderful. And there I did some consular work, which is visas, which is what most people think the embassy does all the time, but actually it's only a small part of what we do. So I did visas there for Israelis who wanted to travel to the United States. And then I worked in the press section at the U.S. Embassy in Israel. And then from there, they sent me to Moscow, and I worked in the political section 1 year, and I worked as an assistant to the ambassador another year. And then they sent me to Washington, and I worked as a special assistant for the secretaries of state. When I started, it was Secretary Clinton, and I worked with her for 6 months. And then it switched to Secretary Kerry, and I worked with him for about a year and a half.
How was it?
It was great. It was an amazing experience. And then after that, they sent me to Yerevan, and we've been here about 2.5 years. I work in the political economic section here. And basically, what my job here is to follow the political situation in the country, to try and understand it as best as I can by meeting with contacts from the spectrum, right? From the government and parliamentarians and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, political opposition parties, civil society representatives, to try and get a really good sense, youth, of what's happening in Armenia, and basically let folks in Washington know, so that when they make policies about Armenia, it's as informed and as correct and as appropriate as possible.
I see. So you're not necessarily influencing things or changing things. You're more just like information gathering, right?
Exactly. Right.
Observing.
Exactly. It's observation, it's analysis, it's trying to put different pieces of the puzzle together to try and make sense of things. Because when something pops up on your news ticker, you know, if you're a policymaker in Washington, you may have one reaction. But when I am living that reality and I'm able to combine it with a couple of other pieces of the puzzle, then it's a fuller picture. It's a more appropriate and a more nuanced impression of what's happening here.
Nice. We did our homework before you came here, aka.
I bet you did, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
actually, we just looked at the CV that you sent
It's
us.
like Colombia or something.
And we know that you speak Hebrew, and we
Right.
now we know why.
Yeah. So
Now you know why.
So how many languages do you speak?
So
45.
I'm fortunate because it's about 5, but a lot of it has just been a circumstance. Because again, I was born in Armenia, so Armenian was my first language, and a little bit of Russian because I went to a Russian school here, and then when we moved to the U.S., I learned English in America. I didn't know any English when we moved, and then I studied French in school, and I went during college. I studied abroad in Paris 1 year, so I learned French there.
Wow.
And then they sent me to Israel, and I learned Hebrew. And so it's been because of life, not because I've sat there and learned languages, really.
Is that true that Armenians and Jews are alike?
Yes, very much alike. In both the positive and the negative ways.
More about Jews when we come back after our advertisement break. Stay tuned. This is Homesick at Home and our wonderful guest, Ruben Harutyunyan from the U.S. Embassy. We are back.
So where did we leave off, Ina? What were you saying?
We will fast forward that part.
No, it's true that
Yeah.
Jewish people and Armenian people have a lot of similarities. The focus on the family, the importance of children, the importance of the language, the importance of food, the importance of religion, a difficult past, overcoming difficulty, often being a minority, there are a lot of
And
things.
fighting for
I
this.
wish Armenia was a little bit more like Israel, though.
Ooh, could you explain a little bit more about that? I mean,
Look, I don't want to go into the politics of Israel and how it came to be and all of that. Just
Okay,
the
5
Israel-
things you would bring from Israel to Armenia.
5 things that I would bring from Israel
Go
to
ahead.
Armenia.
Yeah.
Wait, that's hard. Okay. Shakshuka is like a better version of Pomidorov Zavadzech.
Oh,
It's really good because it has a lot of really good spices in it.
you know everything about me.
Is that your favorite thing?
Yeah. I usually make it for a lot of my
Amazing schnitzel is fantastic.
it always comes back to food, doesn't
food.
it? Yeah.
I mean, I'd bring the Mediterranean with me if I could. Right?
yeah,
Why
right.
wouldn't you? Yeah.
I totally hear you.
What is that? 3? Is that 3 things?
Sure. yeah.
Still food.
I'd bring back Jerusalem. It's an amazing place. That's enough.
Something about people
Something about people.
that will.
The intense ability to make their country the best that it can possibly be, given all of the difficulties that it has.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well said.
What about these upcoming elections? Let's jump a little
Okay.
to something very actual at the moment. Can you say something regarding?
I can say a couple of things. I can say that I hope every single person who's listening
Votes?
goes out on Sunday and votes and cast their ballot and makes a decision, because I know there's a lot of apathy and a lot of distrust, you know, but democracy requires that people go to the polls. It requires that people cast a vote, because only by doing that can you then be a member of society that demands something from the government, because you have cast your vote and made your voice heard. And I know that there's a lot of people who have a lot of issues with that, but encourage you to go. You know, the U.S. Embassy, the European Union, etc. We've done a lot to try and make the voting process in those polling stations the best that it can be, with technology, with new, you know, systems, new mechanisms. We hope it's going to make a difference. We really do. We believe in what we've done. And we hope that the outcome is going to be one that the people trust, that is best for the Armenian people and for the future of this country. The people deserve that.
Is there something specific which has been changed or that's newly implemented that will give people confidence in feeling that their vote will be counted well?
I think what we had heard a lot from political opposition and civil society and even the government to some extent is, if there was a way to get people out of the process, of the actual voting process, that would instill trust in the voters that there isn't manipulation happening. And so what we did, again, in partnership with the European Union and the UN and Germany and the UK, is install machines in the polling stations that basically are the mechanism that identifies a voter, right? Because we had heard things like there were people voting more than once, there were people voting instead of other people, and it was messing with the vote count, etc. So now it's virtually impossible. I'm not going to say completely impossible, because these are machines, there's always a human factor, etc. But we think that there's a will that these machines will be used in the right way. And that means you walk into the polling station, you've got your ID, the machine swipes your ID, it either identifies you or doesn't identify you. Or it says, you've already voted once. And it's hard to mess with that. Right. You know, unless there's a reason to do that, which I hope there isn't.
Good. That gives hope.
Yeah,
no,
definitely.
and again,
that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
The machine will identify you, and you put your fingerprint, and it identifies you some more. And there's a lot of redundancy built into the system.
Yeah.
The machine is going to print out a receipt. You take the receipt. When you cast your ballot, they count the receipts against the number of people who came in. So there's a lot of redundancy built in, so that, you know, 5 people can't have gone in, and then they say, 100 people voted here. It's virtually impossible to do that. So we've done our level best, but again, it requires people to go and take advantage of this. This is a critical election.
Go ahead and vote, dear listeners. Do not forget.
Are you going to go?
Yes.
Are you going to go? You can't vote.
No. Yeah, sorry, guys.
Yeah, no. Don't listen to Rafi. Listen to Nina.
Listen to me.
Story of my life.
And you know, it's good that it's not on April Fool's Day, the elections.
Right, yeah.
And we heard rumors about the U.S. Embassy in Armenia. Is it really like the second largest U.S. Embassy in the world?
We have a beautiful territory. And the reason it's beautiful is because on a clear day, you are on the bank of Lake Yerevan with Mount Ararat on the other side. And it's an amazing place to work. It really is.
It's big, though.
It's big.
One of the biggest in the world? One of.
You know,
Yeah.
people say that. I don't. I'll just say it's super beautiful.
Nice.
Thank you. How many floors down does it go?
There's this crazy rumor about us having a submarine.
Yeah, we were going to ask about that. I mean, it's...
Is that one of the things you
Haven't
Googled?
heard
Sure.
that
I mean,
one.
what kind of rumors have you guys heard?
Are there any
The submarine
aliens?
is probably the most ridiculous one, because even if there was some ship in that lake, where would it go?
Are there any aliens or secret projects going on there?
I don't believe in aliens, so probably not.
Okay.
Probably not.
How did you end up working there?
At the embassy here?
Yeah.
Luck, probably, as most things in life tend to be. The right opportunity came out at the right time, and we decided to take advantage of it. My wife is also from here.
Mm-hmm.
She was also born in Armenia, so she wanted to come back. And our kids had never spent a lot of time here, and so we thought it would be good for us to bring them here, let them experience Armenia and be exposed to this place at a young age. And
How old are they?
my daughter Sophia is 7. She'll be 8 in July, and my son Rafi just turned 3.
Great name.
Great name. Agree.
And do your kids speak Armenian?
Yeah, we speak Armenian at home. We constantly have to remind them to speak Armenian. It's always a struggle because, they watch cartoons and they go to an American school. And so they want to speak English, but...
They go to American school here?
Yeah.
But I feel like if they're living in Armenia, there's no way they can not pick up the language. I mean, they're interacting with people all the time, yeah?
No. We speak Armenian at home, and they speak Armenian with their grandparents, and it's easier. They default to English. We have to remind them to do the Armenian.
Uh-huh. And was it, was it luck? Did someone ask you to come over and work in the embassy here, or did you apply for it beforehand?
Yeah, the way it works is when you join the Foreign Service, basically the first couple places they assign you. They assign you to the posting. So they assigned me to Israel, they assigned me to Moscow, partly because of language ability, partly because of whatever. And after that, really, you kind of make your own path. There's a list that comes out of all the available vacant jobs around the world, at embassies around the world, and you apply like you would for any other job. You send in your resume, you tell them what you can do, your languages you speak, the experiences you have, and they pick the person who's the right fit for the job.
An average interview.
An average interview, and then you move your life halfway around the world.
Oh, that's awesome, though.
Yeah. So it's been interesting.
Do you think in English or Armenian or both? Different times?
I probably think in English.
Okay, we'll come back to this. We have another question connected with thinking either language, so we'll come back to it after we have a break. Stay tuned. This is Homesick at Home English speaking show, which is on air every Friday from 9 to 10 on Radio 1 103.1.
Sofia.
Yes, this song was specially dedicated to Ruben's daughter, Sofia.
My daughter is gonna freak out when she hears it.
Yeah, and if your family is listening to us, hello.
Hello.
Yeah, my wife is
Hello.
listening, and she told me to tell everyone that I love her very much, and I can because it's the truth.
Oh, very sweet.
She just had a very successful event at the embassy today. She organized an event for Armenian winemakers and
And
Armenian
we're drinking
fashion.
wine.
Huh?
And we're drinking wine.
And people from the fashion world and rug makers. It was a very nice event, and so congrats to her.
Awesome.
Cool.
So your wife
Yeah.
also works at the embassy.
She does.
Nice. Does that ever get too much when you guys are? Do you guys work
We
side
do
by side?
very
Or?
different things and hardly ever see each other during the day.
Oh, nice.
And so when we go home, there's a lot to talk about.
And speaking about thinking in English or Armenian, Rafi, you want to tell a little bit about the movie that you watched?
Well, I do, but now I feel like it'd be a spoiler if I start explaining too much about this film. But basically, I won't name the film, so that way it won't be a spoiler. But there's
Okay.
this concept that, like, the way that we think influences, or the languages that we know influences the way we think. And so that's why we asked earlier, like, do you think in Armenian or in English? And how does knowing all those different languages, how does it influence the way you think?
I don't know about influencing the way I think, but I do know that when I speak a different language, I'm a different person. The personality that I bring forth in every language is different. Like the person that I am in English is not who I am in Armenian. It's not who I am in French. It's not who I am in Russian. Because, you maybe censor yourself or you present a different image of yourself based on the language and the culture. And so I've definitely noticed that in different scenarios and with different languages, I'm like a different personality.
Right. So it's almost intentional that you're a different personality, or
No,
just...
it happens unintentionally because of the language.
Right.
No, that's exactly how I feel. The same way when I speak English, I'm a totally different personality.
Yeah.
And at some point, as I started being a host, working here on radio, I noticed that for me it's easier to be in this host image, speaking in English. On air. More it's easier rather than speaking in Armenian. I don't know why that happens.
Have you ever
But-
tried being a host in Armenian?
Well, I've done interviews. I've had interviews in Armenian, and for some reason it's harder for me. I don't know. Maybe it's like a character you change.
Yeah, I think so.
Something about that.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah. I know for me it's my limited vocabulary, you know, so then I pick and choose the words that I know how to use, and it comes out as me sounding like a totally different person. Maybe sometimes more aggressive or sometimes more submissive because I'm choosing the words.
That's absolutely right. Yeah. So when I was studying abroad in Paris, I was at a university and everything was in French, and you know, you wanna not be an idiot, and so you form the sentences in your mind before you say them because you want to make sure that they're well crafted and well formulated. And so it was a course on 20th century diplomacy, and at this French university, one of the topics was the events of 1915 and what happened in Ottoman Empire, and including the Armenians and everything.
Right, heavy topic that you have to speak in.
Heavy topic. And here I am, an Armenian American in this classroom, the only Armenian anything in the classroom. And so I'm trying to formulate these brilliant thoughts in my mind to then be able to say them and articulate them and express my point of view. And every time I would form the perfect sentence, the moment would pass and it would be a different topic. And then I would formulate another perfect sentence and then another moment would pass. And the class ended and I hadn't said anything. And I left and I was so frustrated and I was so mad at myself.
I had
said,
so many things
Ruben,
to
I
say.
had so many things to say. And you said none of them. And I
can-
was so upset at myself.
I just have this mental image of just the spotlight on him and just, you know, as the sentences
It's
are
ex-
formulated.
That's exactly how I felt.
Just sweet.
Just sweet. And then it would move on.
Do you miss America?
Yes, I miss it very much. I miss my family. I miss I miss the ease of it. You know, I miss not having to fight for everything. I miss
You know, it's interesting. One of our previous guests who came over here from Turkey, like a repat, he said, I miss the feeling of being an Armenian in Turkey.
Interesting.
He was telling about that he had a fight. He was fighting every day for being an Armenian
To be
in
an
Turkey.
Right, that was his
Yeah,
identity.
yeah.
That the Armenian that was in Turkey.
Right.
And then now over here, he's got what, a totally different personality, or totally different
Right.
image.
And one of our standard questions, since our show is called Homesick at Home, where is your home?
Oh, that's a hard one. So when we got married, and I hope she's listening right now because I'm gonna embarrass her. We got married, and I had already joined the Foreign Service, and my wife knew that we would be moving around the world, and I can't remember if it was before we went to Israel or right after we went, and she said, am I not gonna have a home where I'm gonna get to pick out the curtains, you know? And for her, that was just a very much like, I'm putting down roots, you know, I'm picking out curtains for my house. And I said, but no, we're gonna move every 2 years. Why do you need curtains? That's silly.
It's a woman thing. I
It
understand.
may be a woman thing, but you know, I like the fact that we move every 2 or 3 years. I like the fact that we get to experience a new culture and we get to expose our kids to these new and amazing and beautiful things about the world that we wouldn't otherwise. But here's what I do miss. I miss not being in a place where I went to school, where I went to college, where my friends are, where my family is, where I have these connections that I don't have to construct every time over again. It's hard. It's exhausting. Moving every 2 or 3 years, you move, you don't know anyone,
start
nobody
from
knows
zero.
you. You start from zero. It's not, to me, it's not about the house or the car or the grocery store. It's about the
People.
connections, the human connection,
People.
and not and having to establish yourself and present yourself anew and have people like you or dislike you anew. And sometimes you're in those situations with people that you really work well with and mesh with and connect with, and sometimes it's not a great fit, and then you have to work through those struggles. And it obviously has its positives. You get to reinvent yourself.
It's
in a
always
I
certain
was
way.
going to say, it's how
Always
liberating
new.
that
You get to
do that.
reinvent yourself. But I wonder if after a while it doesn't, you just want to be who you are, and you don't want to have to prove it every time or show it or demonstrate it every time.
But you don't get to get tired of the same reality all the
That's
time.
true. That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
Do you think your family feels the same way? Like the wife and kids?
I think
The curtains.
I tried to convince her to come along with me, and she didn't. So she can't be upset at me for putting words in her mouth.
Uh-huh.
I think she would prefer that we stayed in one place. I don't know what our kids are. I mean, I think the experience with people who have kids and live this life, it's either a great fit for the kid or it's a terrible fit. Because some kids are just very good at the adaptation and it teaches them these skills that then they can use throughout their whole life. The language skills, the constantly having to reinvent yourself and make new friends and very
make
quickly
it
and
more
establish
flexible.
yourself, flexibility. But then there are some kids who like stability, who like what they like and their room and their home and their school. And our kids have done amazingly so far. Both Sophia and Rafi
It's a growing experience.
have done
I think,
amazingly,
for them.
and I'm so proud of them. And I hope that continues. But if they grow up a little bit and it seems like it's not the right fit, we'll change course and we'll do something else.
Nice. I mean, do you already have how long have you been here in Armenia, stationed here in Armenia?
We've been here over 2.5 years.
And so you're coming around that point where you have to decide do you get a decision whether you're going to stay or move on?
No, a standard assignment for a U.S. diplomat in Armenia is 2 years, and you have the option of extending. So we extended for another year, so we're coming to the end of our 3rd year. So this summer we'll move on.
What are the advantages of working in the U.S. Embassy in Armenia?
The advantages are that you get to work with incredibly motivated, professional, capable people who really work every minute of every day to do their best to make Armenia a better place. And it may seem odd because it's the U.S. Embassy, and our primary motivation and objective is to promote U.S. foreign policy. But I can tell you sincerely and honestly, U.S. foreign policy in Armenia is to make Armenia a better place, to make Armenia a stronger economy, to make Armenia a more vibrant democracy, to make the Armenian citizenry more engaged and more empowered, and to integrate Armenia more into the international market and the international world. And we do that every day, and we do that every minute of every day. And I'm so proud of my colleagues. I have perhaps a vested interest because of my background, but I have colleagues who have nothing to do with Armenia and have never been here before, and they work just as hard every day to make that reality possible. Starting from Ambassador Mills to our Deputy Head of Mission, Rafiq Mansour, to every one of my colleagues and my boss and the people who sit across from me every day, just every day putting in 150% to make Armenia a better place.
Can we say hello to them tonight?
Yeah,
Hi,
I
everybody.
hope they're listening after
Yeah.
that. I feel like
You better be listening.
you're gonna walk in on Monday with like a round of applause as he walks through that door.
I hope they're all listeners of your show. That would be great.
Do you think?
Yeah,
I
go
want to.
ahead.
Do you think that that idea of improving Armenia, does that require a lot of foreign resources, or is that something which is already here in Armenia, just needs to be tapped?
Look, over the past 25 years, the U.S. government has provided over $2 billion in assistance to Armenia. Our focus now has shifted from aid to trade, and we're focusing more on expanding U.S.-Armenia trade relationship and business ties and economy. But bottom line, at the end of the day, those $2 billion won't mean anything if there's not political will, if there's not a real sense of ownership of that vision by the people who run this place and by the citizens of this country. And that's why the election on Sunday is so critical, because you have to make that count. You have to make your government work for you, just as we do in the United States. It's no different. You know, democracies are the same all over the world.
And I got another. So,
My turn.
okay, go ahead.
Okay, before we go on another break, a really quick question. Are there things that irritate you in our reality? Is that a quick question?
You guys are trying to get me in so much trouble right now.
Well, no.
What irritates me? You know what irritates me?
That question.
Yeah, you irritate me. No. What irritates me is this.
Maybe we should come back. Should we come back to this one, to the answer?
We can. Take your time,
All
Ruben.
right. Yeah, I wanna make this count.
Okay. We're still here for another 20 minutes. Stay tuned to discover more of Ruben Harutyunyan. This is Homesick at Home.
Радио
Ван. Реклама на Радио Ван. Нас слушают порядочные.
Դուք ունեք հաղորդագրություն Vivarro-ից։ Հենց այսօր մեծ ուրբաթ մրցաշար Vivarro-բլոթում 1.200.000 դրամ մրցանակային ֆոնդով։ Մանրամասները Vivarro.am կայքում։ Իդեպ Vivarro-բլոթում ամեն ուրբաթ խաղարկվում է 1.200.000 դրամ։
Для рекламы звоните 540002.
Երեք էլ դու ասում էիր սկսելու եմ վաղը։ Orange Fitness Premium ակումբ։
Where is home?
Follow Od Rafiki, he knows the way. Oh, and Ina too.
Hakuna Matata!
Homesick at home.
English-speaking show. Homesick at home. Hakuna Matata, but still we have this question. I hope this short break was enough for you to think. And Ruben. Okay, what are the three things you would change about Armenia?
Here's the thing that I wish was a little bit different.
A real diplomat.
I think the history of the Armenian people and this country has made this to be a reality, and I wish it wasn't so. I think there's a lot of short-term thinking and short-term decision making by people on an everyday basis. People think about the immediate and they make a decision about the immediate without really a sense of sort of the consequences or like a longer term sort of mentality. And maybe that's a luxury of a place that can afford it, of a society that can afford it, that's not under strain, that's not under duress, a people that hasn't been through the history that these people, the Armenian people, have been through. But I think sometimes
it's all in the genes.
Yeah, but I may be, but I think sometimes the short-term mentality precludes better decisions later on, or prevents making the right decisions now, even though it may be a little more difficult but better for the future.
That's one of the things.
That's one of the things. The other thing, I'll just be honest.
Yeah.
I wish cab drivers didn't try and rip me off.
Oh man, yes, exactly.
Today I had a guy who tried to charge me 4,000 dram. I hope he's listening, although I don't know. Maybe,
Will he understand English?
Maybe he speaks English.
Yeah.
He tried to charge me 4,000 dram to get from the Marriott, the Independence Square, to the embassy.
Okay,
No.
I will translate. Miarek Tensban. Don't do
But
that.
gittas inchi miarek tensban. You know why not? Just because, okay, it didn't change my perception of Armenia.
But
But
the
if I had been a
tourists-
tourist for the first time in Armenia, in
Right.
Yerevan, and a guy charged me 4,000 dram to get from basically one side of the street to the other,
I
I
think
would. What happens? Not only does that ruin my impression, but then I go home and tell all of my friends and relatives, and what's the likelihood they're going to come to Armenia?
Yeah.
I think
it's true.
this is the
It's true.
continuation of your
Oh,
previous.
that, exactly.
the
For
short,
that guy, that short-term
term
thinking was
thinking.
he'll make a quick buck. But the lasting impression that would have
But
for
next
tourism,
time, will that tourist come again?
that's right. I hope
That's
they
the
will.
question.
That's the question.
What do you do for fun?
I go on radio shows. I randomly walk into radio shows and see if they'll have me on a Friday night.
Do security guides come with you?
No, I don't get any security. Thankfully, Armenia is a very safe place.
That's one
I
of the
spend-
one of the good things about
It's a
Armenia.
very good thing.
It's the
And
safest
I
place.
hope
I feel the safest here that I've ever,
you ever
anywhere
felt.
else in the
yeah,
world.
and I hope that continues. God forbid that were to change. I spend a lot of times with my kids. A lot of time with my kids, and we go to movies and we go walking in the city now that the weather's nice,
Yeah.
and we play silly games at home. And
So you're a family Superman.
I'm a family guy. I am, and I'm boring, and I act older than I am. And
Are you guys watching films? Are you going to the theater or are you watching at home?
we do both. We do both
And is it in English?
In English.
with the kids. Yeah.
Yeah. But with just you and the wife, it's in Armenian.
We'll watch anything. We'll watch. I like watching French movies, and we'll watch Russian, Armenian,
Oh, nice.
English.
I like how over here every movie is a new movie for me. You know, it may have been out for like 3 years, but I finally someone told me about it
You
one
got
day.
around to it.
Yeah, and I finally got to watch it online.
Yeah.
And what about the movies, Rafi? The Sanctuary question.
Oh, yeah. So, I always see in films where whenever there's some trouble happening in another country, and there's a U.S. embassy nearby, everyone runs over to the U.S. embassy because that's like some kind of almost like holy ground, kind of, right? Is that true? Does it have like its own rules, its own law? It's a little piece of its own country?
No.
No.
No, it is not true.
The illusion is broken.
The illusion is broken. The mist has been lifted, but
Oh, those Hollywood movies.
the only part of it that is true is that one of the, one might argue the most important thing that we do, that any embassy does, Armenian embassy in Washington, U.S. embassy here in Yerevan, is to take care of our citizens in that country. So if an American citizen is in distress, I hope some of them are listening, not the ones in distress, American citizens, if they are in distress, they can be in touch with the embassy, and we can do what we can to assist them. If it's a medical emergency or any other kind of emergency, we have special folks at the embassy whose job it is to assist with American Citizen Services. And if I can just put a plug in for the American citizens, please register with the embassy, because if there is some kind of an emergency and we have to be able to send a message out to the American citizens, it's the best way, and the only way we can do that is if you're registered and in our database.
That reminds me. I think when I first came over, I looked at the U.S. Embassy website for Armenia, and it listed two of the most dangerous things in Armenia. And I think one was don't take marshutkas.
Taxis. Taxi drivers.
Yeah, that wasn't on the list yet, so we'll see. And then the other one was don't go into the football stadium, the old Harazdan Stadium.
I don't know, man. I was at the Harazdan Stadium. I was at the Vazgen Sarkisyan, or what is it? Vazgen Sarkisyan Stadium the other day, and they won. Armenia won, and it was glorious.
Yeah.
All right, so it's worth the price then. Worth the risk.
And I was thinking to myself, this is probably the only situation where you could put so many Armenian men in one place, and they won't fight with each other.
They didn't?
They didn't. Nobody fought. Everyone was happy. Everyone's
Wow.
eating sunflower seeds, cheering on the home team, and thank God they won.
Do you know why are marshukas on that list?
Because there's too many people in them.
Stuffed.
Yeah, the likelihood that your face is going to be up against someone's butt is pretty high.
For people who have claustrophobia. Attention. Do you have any phobias, by the way?
I don't.
You don't?
No, should I?
Just asking. Any spiders, snakes?
No, I can't think of anything.
And this question regarding me as a Flex alumni.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. It was 16 years ago, though. Oh, that
But
was
it made
long.
you the wonderful person you are today.
Well, yeah, it was like a standard phrase. It was a growing experience.
Where did you go?
it was
Where did you go?
It was Indiana.
Indiana. I have
There
not
was-
been to Indiana.
I keep saying
No one
this.
has.
When I first entered the state, there was this banner saying there is more than corn in Indiana. And after 1 week, I said, "Okay, yeah, right."
You had yet to see it. What that was?
Well, but I had a chance to travel around, like Florida, Chicago, Texas, and stuff. And it was September 11 year.
Wow.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I didn't have the chance to travel to New York because my parents here were freaked out. They were like,
Oh.
"Please don't go anywhere."
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
So
Well, I'm
I
sure.
didn't.
Have you been to the New York since?
no, but
You
I
still
will-
haven't been?
No,
Oh,
but
you gotta
But I
go.
have to. Yeah,
It's an
because
amazing place.
I'm still in
yeah,
touch
that's
with
where
friends
I went to
and
college. Yeah,
yeah.
You have a connection
I'm
at the
see-
embassy now. You can.
that's
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
Connections.
Wink, wink, nod, nod.
Yeah. So, do you guys have any? Because I know about I have a general idea about the programs for youth that you have, but would you like to present certain programs that you have?
Yeah,
Sure.
are there any other programs for Armenians to visit the U.S. or any kind of
Sure.
U.S. relation Armenian programs going on?
We have an entire section of the embassy devoted to cultural programming, and a big part of that is fostering people-to-people ties and making sure that regular Armenians can meet with regular Americans and create those bonds that basically underpin the strong relationship that the governments have, right? And obviously we can rely a lot on the diaspora to do that, but more importantly, we want people from Armenia to go and experience the U.S. And Indiana may not have been New York, but to a big
it was
extent,
real
that's
Armenia.
real
That's
America.
Real America, yeah.
That's real America, where people go to Friday football games, and family is important, and food is important, and religion is important,
Right.
and the church.
That was the real thing.
And whereas places like New York, they're wonderful and they're beautiful, but they have people from all over the world, and that's not necessarily America. But we want people to experience all of it, from New York to Las Vegas to Miami to Indiana to Texas to Washington D.C. And so we have a couple of things. So for high school students, we've got the Flex program, which is great, and you apply basically in your second and last year in high school, and you go and you spend an entire academic year in an American high school and experience the best of the best and worst of what high school in America is. We've got opportunities for people to go during college, and that's the Fulbright program. And we've been able to expand the Fulbright program by partnering with the Hovnanian Foundation to increase the number of students that we can send to study in the United States, particularly in the fields of science, mathematics, engineering, and that kind of stuff, which is so vital for a future forward economy. We have opportunities for people who have already graduated to go into postdoctoral research in the United States. We have professional opportunities where you could be a journalist, or you could be an agriculture expert, or you could be a teacher, and we have opportunities to send people to the U.S. to learn from the U.S. experience in this particular field, social work, refugee assistance. We have a program now about renewable energy. How's renewable energy done in Seattle or in Oregon or in Arizona, and how can that experience perhaps be used here in Armenia? So we do the gamut, basically from high school to professionals, and we encourage people to look at the U.S. Embassy website. All our opportunities are always advertised there, and reach out and make yourself known, and we will try and include you to the extent possible.
Great, thank you. We're gonna have a little break, and then our last entry for this wonderful evening.
Aww.
10 more minutes, dear listeners. This is Homesick at Home. Take it home. Steven, save me from this evil laughter. And we're back with our a wonderful guest, Ruben. Ruben, this wasn't as scary as we imagined.
Yeah, this was way
It was
easier
so
than we
easy.
thought.
I'm a nice guy,
It was-
man. I'm
yeah.
a nice guy.
Yeah.
Did you draw
it
the
was
straw?
great.
I mean, you said you were also a little bit nervous about coming on the radio.
I was nervous. I've never been. Yeah.
How did they decide? I mean, did you draw the short straw, or
No, they said there's this opportunity. Would you be interested? And I thought, yeah, it's every experience is worth trying. And
right?
Will you send over your colleagues?
yes, I will. You
Thank
guys
you.
are so great
Everybody
that I would
here
love for them
this-
to all come and experience it.
Okay, we'll be looking forward to
All right.
having them here in our studio.
Okay. Only if you tell all of them that I was the best one.
Well, of course.
Do you
For
promise?
sure.
Okay. all right.
First is the best.
Okay, there you go. There you go.
Then, what kind of changes will Armenia feel when Trump is president?
Well,
In
he's
your-
been president for some time now. Look, the only thing I can say is, especially because we're in an election cycle here in Armenia, is change and transition and a chance to start anew, to think anew, to approach issues from a new perspective, is an opportunity that every democracy needs to take advantage of. And in the United States, we had that opportunity with this last election. Change in administration, change in party, change in point of view, change. Not everyone agrees, and that's fine. But it creates a debate. It creates a real societal debate about the important issues. In the United States, it's healthcare, it's the economy, it's security. In Armenia, maybe it's other things. Maybe it's Nagorno-Karabakh and peace, and maybe it's the economy, and maybe it's anti-corruption, and that's a part of the democratic process. And again, we're going to the polls here on Sunday. Maybe there'll be a continuation of rule. Maybe there'll be a transition in power to a different party or a different collection of parties, and that's fine. And that is a normal part of a democratic governing process. And we shouldn't be afraid of it. We should embrace it. And sometimes we agree and sometimes we disagree with the policies that are being put forward. But at the end of the day, as long as it's civil and it's informed and it's engaging for the citizenry, then it's all to the better of that society, is my opinion.
Thank you. And what happened with the 10-year visa? Is that true that Armenians don't get them anymore?
It was a very graceful transition. Thank you. No, the standard issuance of U.S. visas for Armenian citizens is a 10-year multi-entry visa. Of course, the consul who interviews the applicant has the discretion to change it based on the circumstances. But the standard is 10 years multi-entry.
Okay, so
it's not
stop
going
the
away.
rumors, people.
Stop
it's
the
still
rumors.
there.
It wouldn't be Armenian without the rumors.
Yeah, sure.
Well, so what does the ideal visa candidate look like? What kind of things are?
Like me.
Yeah, like Ina, exactly. So every vice consul, whether it's in Armenia or like me in Israel or in Russia or in France or in Sao Paulo, Brazil, is looking for the same thing in an applicant applying for a tourist visa to the United States. Can this person convince me that they have the means, that they have the previous travel history, that they have the general, basically, identity of a person who's going to go on vacation in the United States and come back? Or is this person going to go and stay in the United States? And if you have a doubt that this person is really going to do something else with this visa, go work, or go stay, or go live, whatever, then you deny. If you are convinced at the time of the interview that this person has the adequate, basically, qualifications, financial means, previous travel history, job, employment, all of that, that would make them a qualified applicant, then you issue them on the spot.
So we try to, encourage repatriation. So people, please do not live forever. Come back.
Oh yeah,
Go
yeah.
spend-
Just a visit.
Go spend
Yeah,
2
just
weeks in New
visit,
York
yeah.
or Indiana
And bring the
or
best
Seattle,
stuff.
and then
And
come
bring
back.
the best experience back
That's
with
right.
you.
That's right.
Do you have any wishes for our show or maybe some questions? We're open now. We're finished.
You guys are fantastic.
We're almost
I wish
done.
you all the success in the world. I wish you more viewers and more listeners and more callers and more, interviewees, and keep
Thank
doing
you.
what you're doing, promoting English language and information dissemination, and
We love what we do.
Thank you very much.
yeah, you can tell, and that's why you're so good at it.
Thank you. Thanks for being with us tonight. We really enjoyed this chat. We almost forgot even. If not the advertisement breaks, we would forget that we're here in the studio, right?
Totally. We're just having a normal conversation.
And for those of you guys who missed this show, we're gonna post this episode on our page, Homesick and Home, also Radio Van 103.1 on Facebook, as well as on our website, www.radiovan.fm. Do not forget to download our application, because you can always listen to us anywhere you go on your smartphones. Have a great weekend. Have a great Friday night. This was Rafi Petrosyan.
And the lovely Ina MK.
Thank you. And our dear guest.
Thank you guys
Ruben.
for having me. Best of luck. Thank you to all
thank
your
you very
listeners.
much. Good night, all.
Bye.